Let's begin today's Vanguard news by jumping right straight to the Varga and Rezael's new forms and supports in DZBT05, since SIG comes out in Japan on Friday. Unparalleled Drekasleif Varga Dragres Rakshasa becomes in Malwyrm state when riding over a Varga unit with a different name or a unit in Malwyrm state. Then you activate Persona Ride. If you have not activated Persona Ride this turn, once per turn while on Vanguard, retire both players' front row rear guards, and it gets 10k power when it attacks a Vanguard. If it's in Malwyrm state, then you can pay 1 counter blast at the end of that battle to retire both players' back row rear guards and stand itself, but loses 2 drive checks. And once per game while on Vanguard, you can pay 1 counter blast at the end of the battle it attacked, and it stood by its original auto ability to stand itself, and gets 2 drive checks. Malwyrm state is a new mechanic that's similar to Unison Dress, so that you can't put it in your ride deck, thus making this card a turn 4 unit. Take note, if you manage to check Drag Veda on your first twin drive and you use the ability to retire all front row rear guards and get 10k power, but decide not to use the other half of the skill to restand and lose 2 drive checks, you will miss the chance to use the skill that turn, since the entire skill is once per turn. Expect anime deck purist attempting to run Drag Veda regardless. Fiend Beastachio Nimaru when retired on rear guard by your grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard's ability makes you give one of your units 5k power. It gets 10k power instead if your Vanguard is in Malwyrm state. This card implies that you give the power to Varga to keep swinging for over 30k power, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time I've seen what appears to be a Minotaur in Dragon Empire. With how much his club is green, I could have sworn this was a Stoicheia unit. Storm Slash and Dragon when retired on rear guard by your grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard's ability lets you call itself to rear guard in rest state. Then you can pay 1 soul blast if your Vanguard is in Malwyrm state to stand itself. And while on rear guard, it gets 5k power if your Vanguard is in Malwyrm state. It's basically a recurring 13k booster. And again, what the hell is up with the green colors? It makes me want to speculate that both Varga supports were intended to be for Levidrus, but like how the anime seemed to have a last minute rewrite to make now the final boss, Bushiroad gave these cards to Varga instead. Knight of Returning Spear I knows while on rear guard gives 10k power to your other unit placed on the same rear guard he's on by your grade 3 or higher Rezael Vanguard's ability. Rezael asked Alden if he can copy his homework so he could become relevant again. Reflective Dragon while on the back row rear guard lets you pay 1 soul blast when your other unit is placed on rear guard in the same column as this unit by your grade 3 or higher Rezael Vanguard's ability to stand itself. If this was a 13k booster, then maybe people would reconsider. It's just more beneficial to revive a Surgon with Rezael's skill. Fated King of Miracles Rezael Vita while on Vanguard is also regarded as Fated One of Miracles Rezael and gets 5k power for each copy of it in your soul during your turn and gets all of their divine skill. While on Vanguard, you can pay 1 counter blast when he attacks a Vanguard to call up to 2 cards with different grades and a total grade of equal or lower number of your damage from your drop zone. Then you can put a grade 3 or higher Rezael card from your hand into your soul to call a grade 3 or lower card from your drop zone, and units called by this ability get 5k power if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher. Unlike Levidrus MP Rio, this card forces you to run full copies of both Rezael, meaning that unless you have an extra Rezael in hand that you can shove into your soul, you don't get to revive a third unit and none of them will get 5k power. Unless there's a way to get copies of Rezael back to your hand a la Thegria and Maple, players are just going to run this like the normal Rezael acting as extra copies of Persona Ride. Finally, Blessed Dragon Gabuelius when placed on rear guard lets you pay 1 soul blast to look at the top card of your deck, then either put it back on top or bottom of your deck. Then he gets 5k power if you put that card to the bottom. And while on rear guard, he gets 5k power when he attacks while you have 4 or more damage. Then you can pay 1 counter blast if he was placed on rear guard by your Fated One Vanguard's ability and you haven't performed a drive check with your rear guard this turn to get 10k power, but loses 1 drive check and performs drive check on rear guard instead of getting 5k power. First off, Lee Elamorta gets an indirect support of being able to use this card. Secondly, this is just a worst blasted dark with Claudna with limit break restrictions. Why even make this a grade 3 card when it's just going to lose a drive check? Then there's the fact that using this in either Rezael or EL means you're eating 2 counterblast every turn if you want to use the drive check. Even with both having ways to countercharge, it is still too heavy of a cost to maintain. And that concludes this Vanguard news without the bullshit. Special thanks to my Patreon members for continuing to support my content creation. Be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments if you're as disappointed as I'm about Rezael's new form and supports.